Today we are going to teach you everything you ever wanted to know about punting in the NFL. Jets punter Thomas Morstead joins me for an in-depth look at the position. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about plenty more ahead on Locked On Jets.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Friday, June 9th, 2023, and I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com. Thanking you so much for making the show your first listen or first watch every day. Subscribe to the show for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so that you'll get new episodes as soon as they are posted. If you're listening on a podcast source and enjoy the show, please give it a 5-star review, and if you're watching on YouTube, give this episode a big thumbs up. These things help us out and help other Jets fans find Locked On Jets. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL, and when you enter promo code LockedOnNFL, they will throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every offer. Today we have a special guest. It is Jets punter Thomas Morstead. Morstead punted with the Jets during the 2021 season while Braden Mann was injured. He left. He spent some time with the Miami Dolphins last season, but now he's back with the New York Jets. Thomas and I are going to discuss punting in the NFL. He offers a lot of in-depth insight about a position not many people know about. We also talk about Aaron Rodgers' impact with the Jets. We talk about plenty more. So let's jump into my discussion with Jets punter Thomas Morstead. Here today with Jets punter Thomas Morstead. Thomas, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you got it, John.
And, well, welcome back to the Jets, because I know you spent some time with the team back in 2021 and you re-signed this offseason. I'm interested, what brought you back to New York?
Well, I think the simplest way to put it is, I thought I was going to go back to Miami, and that didn't take place. And so I was kind of keep my eyes on what other options were out there. And if I could say one top thing, it would probably be Brant Boyer and Thomas Hennessy. I really enjoyed my time a few years ago. And, when you go to a new place, there's uncertainty with personalities and the people that you have to work with, and, the quality of play that those people have that you depend on. And when those are certain and the people that you work with, you love being around, that was as simple as that is the way I could put it. I mean, it was, I really enjoyed my time, and Brant Boyer and Thomas Hennessy would be reason number one.
What is it about Boyer that drew you so much to him?
Well, I could make that a really long answer. I'll try not to keep it too long, but, Brant played in the league for over a decade, and there's something when your coach has played the game at the highest level. It's just, there's certain things that coaches that haven't played, they don't maybe fully understand sometimes. And, he gets it, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And I love that about him. You always know where you stand with him. And the level of communication and transparency is like second to none. And, I've been with a lot of different coaches now, and just the way he deals with his players, he gives you the answers to the test, and his standards are high, his expectations are high. And, that's what I want to be around. So he also played for a really great coach back in the day called Frank Gans Sr., who I've had the good fortune of playing for my final year of college. And he's like an all-time great special teams guru coach, and we both have that connection. And it's anybody that played for Frank has kind of a bond. And so we shared that immediately, and both probably would credit Frank with a lot of our success playing and coaching for Brant. So that's what I'd say about that.
Now, Thomas, I'm very excited to do this because I don't really know a lot about punting, so I feel like this is going to be very informative. Now, some of the people who follow me probably say I don't know anything about football at all, not just punting, but we're going to stick to punting. You mentioned Thomas Hennessy, who's the long snapper, and I'm just that's a really interesting thing to me. Can you talk about the importance of of the long snapper when you're a punter?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best way to put it is I can't punt the ball until he throws it to me. And so, just having a trust, there's synergy with certain guys that I've worked with where, um, you kind of know each other's ins and outs, where, strength and weaknesses are, and you can kind of like, sometimes with different players, you're able to kind of synergize. What he does well will enable me to do what I'm good at even better. So, and there's lots of little details that sounds ridiculous, but obviously accuracy is important and the speed of the ball getting back to you. But, some snappers have a hitch and Thomas really doesn't have one. So, um, essentially that means that, some guys have to throw it really fast because they have a hitch before they actually snap it. So teams can kind of get a good jump on him. And he's just a veteran guy. Like, he's been around the block. He knows what's expected. He's seen it all and done it all, as far as doing his job. And, it's just a lot of confidence that comes with that. And, quite honestly, we spend more time with each other during the season than we do with our own families. So, getting along with somebody and having similar values is it's really nice to have. And, at this point in my career, to have that is more important than anything. So it's really exciting.
I apologize. This might be a silly question, but is it something in a long snapper you look for the ball to get to you at a certain velocity or put in a certain spot?
Everybody's different. I would say a strength of mine is not covering much ground. So my punting, you know, mechanics are very. I don't cover up almost any distance. I would say I'm a shorter distance covered than almost anybody in the league. And so for me, a guy that throws a ball super hard or super fast is not necessarily what I exactly want. I want a guy that's going to throw me a ball that's maybe a little easier to catch, something that's not as aggressively fast, but something that's relatively accurate and precise. And that's what he does. And it allows me to really do what I do well. But some guys they take up a lot of distance, or they hold on to the ball longer. And maybe they want that ball, maybe they have better hands, and the way they do things, they want to, they want to have that ball in their hand as fast as possible. And so, everybody's got their own things. Some guys like catching the ball with their hands, up like a receiver. And I love catching a ball low. So sometimes you'll see me on a high snap, actually it almost looks awkward to catch like that, but that's the way I drop. So I don't want to have to shift my hands. So there's all sorts of little details in it. Get to know each other. Thomas will know if he's going to miss, I'd rather miss low than high. Some guys hate catching a ball low, and, they'll shank it every time if they get that and they want it high, even if they have to raise up and jump a little bit for it. They'd always rather overhand. So everybody's different, and you just hopefully you work with a guy that will kind of hedge his bets on how he's snapping and be able to make adjustments so that we can work together and do really well.
Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Birddogs. Thomas Morstead makes the Jets defense look good by giving them good field position, while Birddogs makes you look good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do exactly the same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so that you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Birddogs uses anti-stick, sweating, wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. In fact, if there was a piece of clothing that was like Thomas Morstead's an effective punter, Birddogs is an absolutely fantastic fashion item, and it works great. And now you can go to birddogs.com/lockedonnfl and enter promo code LockedOnNFL. That's all one word with no space. LOCKEDONNFL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Again, that's birddogs.com/lockedonnfl for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. I think you have a really interesting perspective on the Jets situation because you were there in 2021, which was kind of like the first year of this build. It was a very young team with Robert Saleh. And now expectations are obviously so different with Aaron Rodgers. And I know we're just getting past OTAs right now. But could you kind of compare where the team was in 2021 with where things are at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of younger players that were there in 2021 that are still here. And, much like a player, I'm sure it's the same with the team as a whole. A lot of times that third year, it's kind of like, all right, we really should be who we're going to be. By the time you get to your third year, you should have a lot of things figured out. And, I think expectations are obviously very high. And that's from the players, coaches, TV networks. Obviously, they've got us playing all sorts of primetime, crazy schedule games. So, but that's all exciting. That's what you want. I mean, if you had a schedule filled with 1 o'clock Eastern kickoffs, that probably says that either no one's excited to watch you play or no one's expecting you to be any good. So it's exciting to have kind of all of these different 4:30 games and 8 o'clock games. And, I think what's important for our team is that everybody's building off of their own experiences from the past. Individually, but as a team, there's new players every year, and the team chemistry will be different than it was last year. And so you have to kind of, you got to kind of lay a new foundation. You're building a new house from scratch in a way. And so hopefully everybody has that sort of attitude that we haven't done anything yet, and we're going to have to go earn everything, and we're going to have a target on our back all season long because of those expectations. And I think if everybody's aware of that and kind of keeps a good head on their shoulders, we'll have a shot to maximize our potential this season.
I know you're a special teamer and he's obviously the quarterback, but can you speak to the impact you see Aaron Rodgers having on this team already?
Yeah, I think, number one, thing I've noticed about Aaron already is, he knows everybody's name in the locker room, people that work in support, equipment managers, people in the kitchen, the weight room staff, nutrition, sports performance. He's obviously made a concerted effort to get everybody's name down very quickly. And that matters, it matters. We need everybody in the building going in the same direction and feeling valued because that's just important. So I've been very impressed with that. Also, I think just his, I remember being out there, right when he got signed, and it's just, he's different than Drew Brees. I had spent a lot of time with Drew, but there's a similarity in the fact that just there's an electricity around somebody like that. It naturally raises everybody's level of expectation. And I think having to feel like to know in your heart that you have a chance to kind of go as far as possible, to really know that is exciting. Every team is excited about the new year and the new season, but I think deep down, 60% of teams know they don't have a shot to win this year. And when you're one of those teams that does feel like you do have a legitimate shot, that's exciting.
Now, I know Robert Saleh decided to cancel the veteran mini camp because the team is playing in early preseason games to get a little bit extra training camp time. Other people ask me about that. Does the mini camp, does the offseason program have an impact? And I don't know because I don't play in the NFL. So I'm just curious your thoughts on the impact you think the offseason program has overall, and the role of the mini camp that the Jets aren't having this year because they have the extra training camp time.
Yeah, look, I think I think the off season is important on a lot of levels. Obviously coaches want to have all their players there as much as possible to just be getting to know each other, building some sort of team chemistry. And they obviously want to see how guys look, is a guy looking like they're out of shape, or they're coming off an injury? Are they actually getting better? Are they, making progress? All those things that you can be uncertain about, that you want to have some certainty. And if you need to make decisions about certain guys or bringing new people in, from that side of the teams obviously want to see guys as often as possible and know where they're at. I think for young players in particular that are learning new things and trying to earn a spot on the roster, I do think a lot of those guys, they really value being around that. And I think there's plenty of guys that feel like, they think they'd rather not even have OTAs and they do what they want on their own. I think an interesting idea is I think it's kind of silly that we have an OTA schedule for 9 weeks and then guys go away for 5 or 6 weeks, and then we have to have this very short ramp up period to go on 100 miles an hour in training camp. So there's pluses and minuses to it. I think ideally it would be like we would just have a few sets of OTA weeks leading up to training camp, maybe call it after July 4th, and kind of have a slower ramp up and maybe a little bit longer of a camp, but no 9-week off season in the spring. But that's above my pay grade. So
I appreciate the answer. Something I've always wondered when you punt, to what extent are you kind of trying to work in concert with the coverage unit? When they make a punt call, are you trying to like kick the ball to a specific area to kind of make sure the coverage guys are in the right spot? How much of it is coordinated? How much of it is you're just trying to hit a good punt?
I think that's both in the same. I think, yeah, it's very important for especially certain players on our punt team to know exactly where I'm trying to punt the ball, because what their action that they'll take, the gunners in particular, is very related to where I'm trying to put it. In particular, Justin Hardy is a guy that we spent his first 4 years were in New Orleans, and I say that 3 or 4. But the beginning of his career, and we did a lot of awesome things together, and so that's another reason for coming back is when you got a guy like that you kind of can. I always feel like if I do my job at the highest level and he does his job at the highest level, it can be a dead play a lot of times, and so yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, I think that's why they brought me back, is hopefully my ability to be very consistent with putting the ball where I say it's going to go.
Can you give me something that the average fan would not realize about punting? Is there something nuanced that that would surprise the typical person watching the game?
Well, yeah, I would say, what would I think that would be? Yeah, I would just say that, there's so much variety in how certain guys play the game. There's be kind of like looking at pitchers, and that some guy's a guy that can throw 103 miles an hour, and that's his only pitch. There's guys like that punt in the NFL. There's guys that are like Greg Maddux that are, hitting 4 different areas of the plate on command, that throw 92. There's guys that have 4 different pitches and hit 4 different balls or 5 different balls and are keeping you off, on your toes that way. So there's sidearm pitchers, right? There's guys that do all sorts of different type of punts in different situations, and it's pretty amazing to me the variety that's out there that all have the same job title as punter of an NFL team.
Now, when you're holding for a field goal attempt or an extra point, is it similar with kickers where they all like different things from their holder?
Yes, definitely so. You have to get to know your kicker and exactly what's important to them. Some guys are more particular than others. Some guys are harder to deal with than others. Some guys just have some guys it's never their fault. Some guys it's always their fault, even if it's not. And so it's that trust and that relationship that you try to build is very, very important. And I view my job as kind of a medium between Thomas Hennessy and Greg Zerline. Is hopefully you guys never even say a word about me, and all you see is a great picture for Greg to be super successful every time.
Is it similar with Hennessy on the holding for the field goals? Does he put the ball where you want him to put it?
I hope he does. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we all understand what we're trying to do. But if he gives me a less than stellar snap, my job is to make it to where Greg is oblivious to that. And so, we all pick each other up. I think that the important thing is that we all have almost unreasonably high standards for performance and expectations of our own selves. And when you got guys that are like that their bar is higher than what your bar is for them, then everybody's generally works really well together.
And my last question for you is about a guy who I think coached you briefly with the Saints. He's one of my favorite football coaches of all time. He spent a lot of time with the Jets, and that's Mike Westhoff. And I know he was with the Saints briefly. What can you tell me about Westhoff?
Oh man, where do I start? We always joke that he invented football because he'll tell you he's started in a lot of trends and special teams. He's a borderline arrogant guy. He's been amazing. His career's been amazing, and his units produce. I stay in touch with Mike. We probably talk every 2 or 3 weeks. I love the guy. I love playing for him. He is. I would say this: he's not for everybody, but I loved playing for him. One of my all-time favorites, and we got on really well because, to be quite honest, the standard was so high for both of us. We just it was nice being around it. I really enjoyed playing for him. I know he's out in Denver now. I think he's the assistant head coach out in Denver. So I'll be looking forward to seeing him on the field this year when we make our way out to the Broncos.
Thomas, thank you so much. I learned so much from talking to you today.
Oh, you got it. I'm glad to do it, John. Thank you.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks so much to Thomas Morstead for stopping by. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. As always, if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you're listening on the podcast source, please a 5-star review helps us out. So does giving this episode a big thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back next week to talk more Jets.